Welcome to this week's episode of the Sports Curious podcast. I am your host, Amy Butchon Siegfried, joined by my sports guru, my favorite sports brain in the universe, my little brother, my co-host, my co-founder of Last Night's Game. Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Another wonderful introduction by you. Happy to be here.
Well, you almost had an introduction from your nephew who just walked in here and ruined the first 30 seconds of us recording. Thank goodness we weren't 6 minutes in or 10 minutes in, because then he would be hung by his toes.
Maybe he had some college football takes he wanted to get on record.
I mean, this is a true statement. He's going to understand college game day nowadays. So we're going to watch it. We'll talk a little strategy the best we can. But I'm glad that you're here with us, because we thought you might be floating down the river because of Hurricane Hillary. So I'm glad you're here and not on a boat somewhere.
Nope, we survived Hurricane Hillary. It was a little overhyped here in Las Vegas. There was a little flooding in the mountains, but other than that, not too bad.
I remember I used flash flood in high school to get out of not going to school or going to school late. I was like, Mom, I can't drive. There's flash flood conditions. I can't go to school right now.
It's valid. I mean, in Vegas, we can get flash floods with half an inch. So
It's true.
statute of limitations on your demerits for being late are probably up. So I think we're okay.
Shh. Anyone seen a good excuse? Dog ate my homework. Old news. Flash flood warnings. Take it. Even though I drove a full-size Bronco, but whatever. It's fine.
Can't mess with the floods.
Can't mess with the floods. And recording a podcast during a flood or on a boat is not really ideal anyway. So I'm glad that you're under your roof.
Yeah, but I mean, if you need me to record a podcast on a boat, like for athletes that own yachts or something, I will volunteer.
I'm thinking that, and maybe we could brand a Last Night's Game Speedo for you.
I think I'm your guy. Nobody wants to see me in the Speedo more than I do, so.
Today's attire, banana hammock.
Last Night's Game edition.
Of course. Since there's no good segue from banana hammocks, let's turn our attention to college football, where probably someone will wear one of those to a game, I suppose, at some point. The interesting thing about the college football season this year is it's really sort of the end of an era, right? We have all these schools that are changing over to different divisions as we go through, and different conferences. They've all kind of voiced that. It's like quitting your job basically a year before you actually want to quit. So talk to me about these transitions, and maybe just give us a little bit of insight for people who haven't been taking notes and paying attention. What does this mean? What is sort of the high level, what we need to know about the end of this era here this season?
Yeah, the past few months have been quite the roller coaster of conference realignments and things like that. I'm kind of dubbing this the last dance, as many people saw the Bulls documentary on Netflix. This is the last year with regular conferences as we know it, because all the news that we saw with realignments won't happen until next year. So we're in this like awkward phase, like you said, if you quit your job, but then you don't leave for a year. So we're going to have a lot of different storylines with all the teams still in their current conferences, but the awkward knowledge that all be leaving next season. So
what are the top two teams that are moving to somewhere new to keep an eye on?
I think probably, I don't know if it's the funniest, but the most interesting is going to be USC and UCLA, because they're going from the West Coast, where they played all Pac-12 teams, to the Midwest East Coast. So they're going to be playing in, Iowa in November at 10 a.m. Pacific time in 10-degree weather, or, at Rutgers with few fans there, low energy in December. So it's
in freezing cold.
Yeah, I think it's the contrast of what they've recruited for their entire football program existence is kind of going to change to suit, because their playing style is just so much different than in Iowa or Rutgers or Northwestern.
It's fascinating. And you went from maybe an hour and a half flight to a game to traveling all the way to New York to play Rutgers. Like that's a big difference when you're talking about, like you said, time changes. And all of those things, time changes, weather, travel time, all those things add up. For the dollar amount they're going to receive in TV contracts, though, it probably makes up for it.
Money talks, as we've seen in college football, so they don't necessarily keep the student athlete's best interest in mind when making these decisions.
Yeah, well, that's what happens, I guess. So let's talk a little bit about college football season. It starts with week 0, or it's dubbed week 0. It's really the first week of college football. So talk to me, why week 0? Why are we making people feel a little less inept, a little inept about their themselves and their showing up on the field?
Yeah, week 0 is the first week of college football, but the major networks, for some reason, have dubbed it week 0, not necessarily to diminish any of the teams playing, but there's not as many marquee matchups this weekend. So it gives maybe teams that don't always get the national limelight, they'll be on TV with everyone's starved for college football, so everyone's going to be watching.
So one of the games that we'll be watching is Notre Dame playing Navy in Ireland. Now they were going to play each other in 2020. Obviously that didn't work out. But this is a matchup that goes way back, way before us. But we looked at going to this game. Notre Dame plays Navy in Ireland. Why not, right? Why not go to Ireland? Why not have a Guinness and go enjoy a game? But this game is really well traveled. The tickets are hard to come by, and you and I looked at tickets. We looked at them, unfortunately, before Christmas and didn't buy them, but then they turned out to be a couple $1,000s for the two of us to fly from Vegas. No hotel rooms. I mean, Dublin is sold out. Airbnbs are sold out. So it's kind of exciting. They play in a rugby stadium? Question mark?
Either rugby or soccer. I
Okay.
can't recall the exact venue. But yeah, that game's got the most hype by far. And I don't know if you remember this, we were supposed to go to the 2020 game.
Mm-hmm.
That got canceled. So we're 0 for 2.
We pretty much we had the Airbnb ready to go. It was
Mm-hmm.
actually going to be on the tiny human's second birthday, and we were going to take him. It was just going to be a family affair, and yet here we are still without a Ireland stamp on our passports.
So we're 0 for 2, but maybe in the future we can go. So the flights were crazy. I remember that. So
It just was like, this is silly to pay this kind of money when we could end up on a really amazing European trip at that point. So without football
exactly.
and
Yeah.
the
So
tickets,
yeah,
right? There were no tickets available.
if you got tickets and flights, congrats.
Tell us how it is. Bring us a
Yeah.
T-shirt.
Tag us on Instagram.
Send us a postcard.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be sitting in, I'd say in my pajamas, but it's a 1:30 game Central Time, so I won't be sitting in my pajamas watching it. But
You can. It's the first week of college football. There's no judgment.
that's true. There's just should be no judgment in general on
No.
college football season. So we have week 0, which is no real big matchups, but just fun and excitement. Everybody's excited about it. It gives everyone a
Mm-hmm.
chance to warm up. Week 1, what does week 1 look like? Like, what game should we be watching?
Week 1's got a lot of primetime matchups between highly ranked schools. Some rivalry games as well to start off the season. So it's Labor Day weekend as well. So everyone's off. Everyone's enjoying vacation. So you might as well sit on the couch for 12 hours and enjoy. But top game I think I'm looking forward to, and a lot of people around the country are just because of the hype, is Colorado at TCU, with Coach Prime making his Colorado debut.
So for the average human, Coach Prime is Deion Sanders, the great NFL player who has created quite a stir. It's quite a marketing stir, really, at Colorado. He left Jackson State. Is that correct? I got the right Jackson State,
Yes.
where
Yes.
he did a phenomenal job. Brought a lot of those players over.
Mm-hmm.
They're in Colorado now playing. He lost a lot of players from Colorado because they knew they weren't going to play. But it's been fascinating to me. I mean, we've seen his athletes have their social media handles on their practice jerseys. But then I thought for some reason he was going to miss a big game or two because he has a blood clotting disorder, and he had to have his toes amputated. But I thought for some reason he was missing a big game. Am I wrong?
I don't think he's missing this one.
Okay.
He'll do whatever he's got to do to get on the field for that game, just because of the hype is going to be unreal. Like he's just done. He started this, his whole marketing, social media presence at Jackson State, grew that into a very big program for HBCU, and then left and made it very well known that he was bringing his own players, and if you weren't good enough, you might as well leave.
And they entered the transfer portal and off they went.
Yes, that transfer portal was very busy.
His son is a quarterback, correct? He came over from
His
there
son is going
as
to be the
well?
quarterback, yes.
Okay. Okay. I thought so. And dare I ask, is his son good enough to be the starting quarterback, or is that sort of a dad situation?
He was very good at Jackson State,
Okay.
so it's kind of unknown. We'll find out pretty quickly. Their schedule's pretty stacked, so we're going to find out pretty quick in the first few weeks kind of where this stands.
And they're another school that's changing conferences next year as well, too.
Yes, they're going back to the Big 12,
I think that's the most confusing. Big 12, Big 10.
especially
At least we
since
have
there's odd numbers of teams in the conferences now.
Pac-12's down to like 4. It's very
I
confusing
think
now.
Big
So
12's at like 16, so
maybe we'll have a vote and everyone can rename the conferences. That seems like a
yes.
lot of fun, doesn't it?
I think we just need to get rid of the numbers and just make them like
Big,
directional, like big or big Midwest or
big,
something.
big, small. I feel like we're like in a
Yes,
kindergarten class.
sadly the Pac-12 is the small one.
There you go. I mean, for now, you never know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
How do my Fighting Irish look this year? Quickly, you don't have to bore the rest of
Quickly, I
everyone else
think
with them.
they're always good. They're always bringing in new talent. Uh, Everyone loves Marcus Freeman, the head coach. I
Mhm.
think everybody wants to see him succeed. They lost their starting quarterback and offensive coordinator to Alabama over the offseason, but they gained Sam Hartman from Wake Forest, who is one of the top quarterbacks in the country at this point. So it's kind of maybe an addition by subtraction in a way.
Okay, okay. And Alabama, I know, is on the list of the top 3 teams to really keep an eye on this season, which, I mean, I feel like that's what they always do. Is there
Mhm.
anybody else we should keep an eye out for?
I think it's really just the usual suspects, unfortunately. You've got your defending champion Georgia Bulldogs, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama. It kind of just repeats every year, the top 4.
But Michigan's coach is Harbaugh's in trouble for something
He is
right now.
in trouble. It's been a very weird situation where NCAA was going to suspend him, they didn't, and the school just announced that they're suspending him for 3 games over
For
some
recruiting?
silly violations over COVID. It's
Oh, okay.
out of everything they could really get in trouble for. It seems kind of dumb, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, I'm sure people who hate Michigan aren't saying that, but
Exactly. But
yeah.
my thought is that maybe he's scared to coach against UNLV week 3, so that's why
Mm,
I think he may be taking the easy route.
those running rebels.
Yeah, watch out.
Watch out. I'm here for it. I'm here for you rebels. Let's do this. So, name, image, likeness, obviously, is something to keep an eye out for. We roll into the season. We have Heisman to keep an eye on, which obviously influences name, image, likeness. Talk to me a little bit how all of that's working together this season.
Name, image, likeness has absolutely changed the landscape of college football. It's no longer about commitment and dedication to a school. It's whoever's going to pay you the most. And kind of interesting fact this year, Arch Manning went to Texas, obviously of Manning fame, to play quarterback. He is the highest paid college football player for NIL, and he's not even probably going to see the field this year at all. So yeah, Quinn Ewers is probably going to be their starting quarterback, and he's not nearly as high as paid as Arch.
How do you think that, like, did everyone expect Arch to come in and start, or is that sort of a faux pas? What is that situation?
I'd say, realistically speaking, no, I didn't think anyone really thought that he was going to start this year,
Got it.
and I assume that they were upfront with him, judging by who's in front of him on the depth chart. So
He's got
he
some
gets
time
to
to
hang
fill it
out,
out.
enjoy college life for a year.
Probably never gotten a chance to do that. Just hang out and relax.
and make $1 million. So
As you do. As
yeah,
you do. Heisman. So we talked about Arch, obviously. If he's not playing, he's obviously not in the running for the Heisman. Who are we looking for the Heisman, which highlights the top player in football, college football, defense or offense? There's no rhyme or reason. It's the best player in college football. Who should we be watching for this year?
I think by far the overall favorite is the defending Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams, quarterback for USC. I think he has by far the most hype going into the season. Likely number 1 draft pick. It's kind of his to lose at this point. But I will say once you get to be such a high favorite and everyone expects so much, people start criticizing small things, and if there's a bad game, then that can affect it. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. There's only been one 2-time Heisman Trophy winner. So while he
And
is favored, that doesn't necessarily mean much.
and the repeat was who?
Archie Griffin,
Okay.
Ohio
There you
State.
go.
So it's
Not
a
to be
very hard
confused with
thing to do. Yeah,
yeah. Not to be confused with Arch Manning, two totally different, sounds the same in the first name, but not so
two
much.
very different people. Yeah.
So I want to share a story that we covered every Sunday. We do a Smile Worthy Sports, which is something great happening in the world of sports because we all have Sunday scaries. So this is a way to sort of cheer us up. We talked about Eastern Michigan Captain Brian Dooley, he's a senior, started 45 games in his career. He gave up his own scholarship to his fellow offensive lineman, Zach Conti. Zach was working multiple jobs. He was donating his plasma, all these things to pay for his schooling. And this story, and if you have watched the video, is just so amazing to see that, schools don't get a lot of scholarships. So to receive a full scholarship is huge. And then to give it to someone else is, phenomenal.
Yeah, no one's giving up their scholarship for anything, so that's pretty unheard of. It shows what a great teammate, right?
Right.
Because
It's incredible.
life is a walk on by itself is bad enough, and then you have to pay for school by doing all these odd jobs
And as a walk on, you're fighting for your place on that team almost harder than anybody else.
every day. Yes, you're
It's
kind of getting the crap beat out of you for no reason.
Yeah. What an incredible story. And hopefully that someone pays it forward or he pays it forward in some way. And it sounds like I'm sure he will. So I just thought that was such a cool thing. Before we wrap, is there anything quickly that you would like to leave us with for this college football season?
I've got one rule change for you.
Okay.
It's kind of going to change the face of the sport a little bit.
Okay.
So one of the biggest differences between NFL and college football, after a first down in college football, the clock stops every time so they can reset the chains and move them down the field. But in the interest of saving time and reducing the amount of plays in a game that could also, obviously result in an injury, they have changed that rule to let the clocks run after first downs, except within the last 2 minutes of each half.
Okay.
So it's supposed to dramatically cut down games which were at like 4 hours, 5 hours.
That's a lot of beer to drink.
That's a lot of beer. So that's definitely going to change the viewership experience for everyone.
It's interesting to see all these sports figuring out how to make it faster, right?
Yes.
We're losing attention span as a culture. And if football's speeding it up and you think football's reasonably, I guess it's really not that fast either. It's like baseball took the pitch clock, put in the pitch
Yes.
clock. It's interesting to see how that's working to make you, the fan, more like me, the fan.
Yeah, improve
more engaged.
viewership.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
it
less
improves,
commercials.
and much better with last call being after the third quarter. You don't have to sit through the fourth quarter for an hour and a half with no beer or anything.
Are there still college stadiums that don't serve beer? I'm sure there are.
There are not as many, but there's still a few.
Okay. College students somehow figure their way around that.
Yeah, somehow.
It's a talent we all had at one point in our lives. Smuggling small liquor bottles in our shoes. Just saying. Okay, one podcast we need to do at some point is go back through the college football traditions, because I can think of the ones that I went through in college at Arizona State, but I would love to hear some of yours and the other ones that are out there. So let's add that to the list of the great college football
Podcast.
traditions. That way, if you're listening to the podcast and you're going to a game, you're prepared. I think that's a huge piece, right? Like knowing what you're getting yourself into.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to ASU, smuggle in your tortillas. I don't think they still do that anymore, but just in case. And that's not to make quesadillas on the boiling hot sidewalk.
You could.
You absolutely could. So, well, I will leave us with that because we are pushing our time. But thank you for your wisdom. For those of you who want more on college football, we'll obviously be pushing a lot of that information out in our weekly newsletter on Wednesday and keeping you up to date in our Monday Minute and our weekend preview podcast, which are short and sweet on Mondays and Fridays. And last but certainly not least, if you are picking a fantasy football team, we worked up a little fantasy football guide for beginners. So if that's new and intimidating to you, send us a message. We'd be happy to help you. But also, we've got that guide right on our website at lastnightsgame.com. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate your
Thank you.
brain.
Thank you.
Thanks.